Maria Santos and Victor Hale seemed like the perfect couple, but when Maria discovered that her stepdaughter Lily was secretly having an affair with Victor, the shocking betrayal set in motion a deadly chain of events that ended in double poisoning. Maria Santos arrived in the coastal city with a single suitcase and a carefully guarded sense of hope. She had left behind her small hometown in the Philippines, along with years of financial struggle and quiet sacrifice. Marrying Victor Hale felt like a rescue from a life that had offered her very few choices. Victor was a respected millionaire known for his success in real estate and his preference for privacy. Newspapers described him as disciplined, intelligent, and distant, a man who built walls around both his business and his emotions. To Maria, he seemed calm and dependable, someone who could offer stability even if love came slowly. The mansion they lived in overlooked the sea, large enough to feel more like a hotel than a home. Every room was carefully designed, yet strangely cold. Maria tried to fill the space with warmth through routine, cooking traditional meals, keeping the house spotless, and following every unspoken rule Victor seemed to live by. She believed patience would turn comfort into belonging over time. Lily, Victor's daughter from his first marriage, lived with them full-time. She was quiet, observant, and distant, carrying the quiet weight of her mother's death years earlier. Maria made efforts to care for her, treating her gently and respectfully, hoping trust would grow naturally. Lily accepted the care but never returned affection, always keeping a careful emotional distance. From the outside, the family appeared perfect. Wealth, security, and silence protected their image. Yet beneath the polished surface, something felt unfinished. Maria sensed an invisible tension in the house, something unspoken lingering in the air. Still, she told herself that new beginnings always felt unfamiliar, and she held on to the belief that this life, no matter how quiet, was a blessing worth protecting. Life inside the Hale mansion followed a strict and predictable rhythm, yet it never felt warm. Victor left early most mornings, dressed sharply, and already focused on business calls before reaching the door. His work trips were frequent and often extended without explanation. When he was home, he remained distant, spending long hours in his study or reviewing documents in silence. Maria learned quickly that questions were unwelcome, so she adjusted, telling herself that this emotional distance was simply part of being married to a powerful man. Left alone for long stretches, Maria tried to create a sense of normal family life. She prepared meals at the same times each day and kept the household running smoothly. Lily moved through the house like a shadow, quiet and observant. She rarely shared details about her school life or friends. Her phone never left her hand, and she often smiled at messages she quickly hid when Maria entered the room. Maria noticed that Lily would sometimes leave the house dressed carefully, far more polished than needed for casual outings, offering vague reasons before disappearing for hours. At first, Maria blamed grief and adolescence. She reminded herself that Lily had lost her mother young and might still be struggling emotionally. Maria avoided pushing too hard, believing patience would slowly earn trust. Still, the distance between them never closed. Lily remained polite but guarded, as if protecting a secret world Maria was not allowed to enter. As weeks passed, Maria began noticing subtle changes. Lily's schedule did not match her school calendar, and her moods shifted unpredictably. At the same time, Victor's absences increased, and his attention toward Lily felt unusually protective. The house remained quiet, but the silence no longer felt peaceful. It felt watchful. Maria could not explain why, but an uneasy feeling settled deep inside her, warning her that the calm life she thought she had entered was not as simple as it appeared. The first signs that something was truly wrong appeared slowly, almost politely, as if the house itself did not want to alarm Maria too suddenly. While tidying Lily's room one morning, Maria noticed a small velvet box hidden beneath a stack of notebooks. Inside was an expensive bracelet, the kind usually locked behind glass in luxury stores. When Maria asked Victor about it later, he brushed it off with a brief explanation, claiming it was an old gift from a distant relative. The answer felt rehearsed, but Maria said nothing. More unexplained items began to surface over the following weeks. Designer shoes appeared in Lily's closet, still wrapped in tissue paper. A new phone replaced her old one without any discussion. Maria quietly reviewed household expenses, something Victor normally handled alone. She noticed several large charges that did not match their usual spending. When she carefully mentioned them, Victor dismissed her concerns, saying business expenses sometimes passed through personal accounts. Victor himself had changed. He locked his phone whenever Maria entered a room and began stepping outside to take calls, lowering his voice. He returned home late at night, smelling of unfamiliar perfume, claiming exhaustion as an excuse to avoid conversation. His temper, once calm and controlled, became sharp whenever Maria asked simple questions. These reactions made her feel like an outsider in her own home. Lily's behavior also shifted. She seemed more confident, almost defiant, carrying herself with a quiet authority that did not match her age. She began missing family meals and staying out overnight without clear explanations. Victor defended her fiercely, shutting down any concern Maria tried to express. Each detail alone seemed small, easy to ignore. Together, they formed a pattern Maria could no longer deny. A sense of unease followed her through the house, growing heavier with every unanswered question. She felt watched, excluded, and slowly pushed to the edges of a life that was no longer truly hers. One quiet afternoon, while Victor was away on another sudden business trip, Maria decided to clean his study, a room he rarely allowed anyone to enter. She moved carefully, aware of his strict rules, but something urged her forward. Inside a locked drawer, she found a thin folder hidden beneath old contracts. The papers inside were hotel receipts from luxury properties in the same city, dated on days Victor had claimed to be traveling overseas. The realization unsettled her, but she forced herself to stay calm and continue searching. Later that evening, Maria remembered an old tablet Victor once used for presentations. It had been left charging in a guest room and was no longer password protected. When she opened the photo gallery, her hands began to shake. The images showed Victor and Lily together in private hotel rooms, their closeness unmistakable and deeply disturbing. The expressions captured in those photos were not those of family. The truth revealed itself without mercy, stripping away every excuse Maria had made for them. Her mind struggled to process what she had discovered. The betrayal was not only marital but moral, crossing boundaries that could never be undone. She felt physically sick, overwhelmed by shame, anger, and disbelief. The house that once felt cold now felt unbearable, as if the walls themselves were hiding secrets. Maria understood instantly that confronting them would be dangerous. Victor's power, wealth, and influence could easily turn against her. Lily, once a distant child, now appeared as someone capable of calculated cruelty. Maria quietly returned everything to its place, leaving no sign of her discovery. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the ocean outside. Her old life was gone, and the future she thought she had secured no longer existed. In its place stood a truth so dark that silence felt safer than honesty. Maria spent days trapped in a storm of thoughts, unable to share what she had discovered. The betrayal was too immense, too dangerous to confront directly. Victor controlled every aspect of her life in this foreign city, her visa, the finances, even access to the house. Any accusation could backfire, leaving her isolated and powerless. Maria realized that fear, not anger, had to guide her next steps. She needed evidence, proof that could protect her if she was ever questioned or forced into a corner. She began observing Victor and Lily with a quiet intensity, noting every glance, every private meeting, every unexplained absence. She recorded details mentally and discreetly kept a small notebook with observations, careful not to leave it where anyone could find it. Every time Victor hugged Lily, every time he excused her from dinner, Maria documented it silently. It was painstaking work, but she convinced herself that knowledge was her only shield. At night, Maria replayed moments in her head, analyzing gestures and words, trying to understand the dynamics that had brought her world crashing down. She felt trapped between disbelief and the harsh reality of the betrayal. The relationship between Victor and Lily was no longer hidden from her. It had invaded her life completely, reshaping the house she thought of as home into a prison. Even as she collected proof, Maria felt a growing sense of isolation. Friends and relatives were far away, unaware of the web of deceit surrounding her. Her mind oscillated between longing for justice and fear of the consequences. Slowly, a plan began to form, not out of malice, but out of necessity. Maria realized that in order to survive, she could no longer remain passive. She had to act, but carefully, strategically, ensuring that the next move she made would never leave her exposed. As Maria continued her silent observation, the situation inside the house grew increasingly tense. What had started as shock and betrayal now transformed into fear and anger. She noticed that Lily was no longer a passive teenager, but a manipulative presence in Victor's life. Small transfers of money appeared from Victor's accounts into ones linked to Lily, and property documents hinted at her gaining ownership stakes without Maria's knowledge. Every day, Maria realized she was being edged out of the life she had tried so hard to build. The realization hit her hard. The betrayal was not only emotional, it was financial and legal. Victor's affection toward Lily seemed to grow stronger, while his interactions with Maria became cold, almost mechanical. Any attempt to speak about the strange patterns or financial irregularities was met with a dismissive wave or a sharp retort. Maria began to understand the full scale of her vulnerability. She had no immediate allies, and even the law might not protect her quickly enough in a foreign country. At the same time, Maria studied Lily's behavior. The girl was clever, always careful to cover tracks, and seemed aware of Victor's influence over Maria. She had turned the household into a small kingdom where Maria was excluded from key decisions. It was clear that Lily and Victor were not only hiding their affair, but also plotting a future where Maria had no place. Desperation settled deep in Maria's chest. She could no longer hope that patience or silence would protect her. Every day she delayed action. She risked losing everything: her marriage, her home, her security. The fear of being completely erased combined with the lingering pain of betrayal sparked a dark determination inside her. Maria knew that survival required decisive, calculated action, and that the life she had once dreamed of was slipping through her fingers faster than she could stop it. Maria spent long nights researching quietly, her mind consumed by the growing realization that she could no longer rely on anyone for protection. She turned to the internet, reading articles and case studies about untraceable poisons and subtle methods people had used to remove threats without immediate detection. She did not act out of rage, but out of a cold, strategic necessity. Every step had to be precise. Any miscalculation could leave her exposed, vulnerable to Victor's power and Lily's cunning. She studied patterns carefully, making mental notes of what could be used, how it could be administered, and how to avoid leaving evidence behind. Recipes, chemical compositions, and news stories became her lessons, and she spent hours ensuring she understood the effects and the timing required. It was methodical work, deliberate and silent, and Maria felt the weight of every decision pressing down on her. At the same time, she observed Victor and Lily even more closely. Every habit, every routine became vital information. She noted when they ate, how they drank, and what they preferred in their daily lives. Maria realized that the perfect plan had to account for unpredictability, for moments when something could go wrong. Her careful attention to detail became an obsession. Nothing could be left to chance. Maria also prepared her alibi, practicing behaviors, gestures, and appearances that would make her seem helpless and unaware. She knew that acting naturally was essential to avoid suspicion. The mansion, once a place of warmth she had tried to create, now felt like a lab where every experiment was critical to survival. By the end of the month, Maria felt ready. The strategy was complete, every risk calculated. She understood the dangers, but she convinced herself that action was the only path left. In her mind, survival justified the darkness she was about to embrace. The quiet house seemed to wait with her, holding its breath for what was coming next. The evening Maria chose to act was calm, almost deceptively ordinary. Victor had just returned from another extended business trip, appearing tired but in good spirits, unaware that Maria had been observing his every habit for weeks. Lily, dressed in a fashionable outfit for no particular reason, joined them at the dining table, smiling politely as if nothing had changed. Maria moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, preparing a special meal that appeared celebratory, full of familiar dishes Victor enjoyed and carefully chosen ingredients. Everything about the table seemed normal, warm, and inviting, masking the meticulous planning behind it. Maria made sure each dish was measured perfectly, the poison added subtly to avoid immediate detection. Her hands did not tremble. Every movement was precise, deliberate, and calculated. She watched the two of them as they ate, noting every bite, every glance, and every casual laugh. On the surface, the family seemed united, but Maria's eyes saw the dangerous tension, the hidden betrayals, and the fragile power balance that had been shattered in her mind weeks before. Hours later, the effects began. Victor slumped first, coughing and sweating, his face pale and drawn. Lily reacted similarly, her eyes wide with sudden alarm, the mask of confidence slipping as her body betrayed her. Maria called emergency services, her voice trembling just enough to convey panic and concern. She attended to them as any wife and stepmother might, offering water and comfort, hiding the careful orchestration behind a facade of horror. Neighbors and staff arrived in response to her calls, finding Maria distraught and exhausted, while Victor and Lily were rushed to the hospital. The quiet mansion, which had once seemed so protective, now felt charged with a new, unspoken tension. Maria knew that the plan had begun, the first step in a path she had chosen out of desperation and fear, and the consequences of the night would ripple far beyond the walls of the house. Victor was the first to succumb. Despite the frantic efforts of the doctors, his body gave out within hours of reaching the hospital. Officially, the cause of death was listed as sudden organ failure, though Maria's careful preparation had masked the true cause. Lily lingered, her body weakened but alive, each breath a struggle. Doctors were puzzled by the severity and rapid progression of her illness, suspecting poisoning but unable to identify the source immediately. Maria remained by their side, maintaining the image of a devoted wife and stepmother, her face etched with grief and exhaustion. The hospital became a stage for her calculated performance. She answered questions politely, nodded when doctors speculated, and cried quietly in moments when no one was watching. Each gesture was designed to appear genuine, to convince the world that she was powerless against the tragedy unfolding. Internally, she remained focused, observing reactions, noting details, and preparing for what would inevitably follow. Lily's condition deteriorated over the next few days. She remained semi-conscious, unable to speak, her body betraying her in the same slow, cruel way Victor's had. Investigators began asking questions, and subtle inconsistencies in Victor's financial records caught their attention. Maria had expected scrutiny, but had also ensured that she left minimal evidence linking her to the poison. Yet, even the most careful planning could not completely shield her. As forensic experts examined the timeline, they discovered traces of an unusual substance in both Victor and Lily's systems. The hidden affair between father and daughter began to surface in statements and interviews, shocking the public and providing motive in ways no one had imagined. Maria's image as a grieving wife now conflicted with the growing suspicion around the family's private life. What had seemed like a perfect cover began to crumble, revealing layers of betrayal, manipulation, and desperation that would change the investigation forever. Months passed before the full truth emerged. Forensic experts confirmed that both Victor and Lily had been poisoned with a rare and potent toxin, one that was difficult to trace and even harder to detect in routine examinations. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community, and Maria was immediately placed under arrest. Her carefully constructed facade of grief and helplessness crumbled under the weight of the evidence. During the trial, the sordid affair between Victor and Lily became public knowledge. Photographs, messages, and financial records painted a picture of betrayal so extreme that it left the courtroom stunned. Witnesses described the household as tense and secretive, corroborating Maria's version of events and highlighting the manipulation she had endured. The jury listened as prosecutors outlined the calculated nature of the poisonings, emphasizing how Maria had observed and learned every habit, every schedule, and every weakness before acting. Public opinion was sharply divided. Some saw Maria as a victim driven to desperate extremes, forced into impossible circumstances by the unnatural relationship between her husband and stepdaughter. Others viewed her actions as cold and premeditated, a calculated move that resulted in the deaths of 2 people. The media coverage sensationalized the story, focusing on the shocking betrayal, the high-profile family, and the dark measures Maria had taken. Ultimately, the court delivered a life sentence. Maria would never leave the country or return to the life she had once hoped to build. The mansion remained empty, a silent monument to secrets, lies, and betrayal. The case became a chilling reminder that hidden truths, when buried too deeply, have a way of surfacing in the most destructive ways. Families, no matter how wealthy or seemingly secure, could be shattered from within, leaving nothing but loss, suspicion, and the echoes of unspoken betrayals.